Ciao a tutti ragazzi, oggi sono con la leggenda della batteria metal, uno dei più grandi batteristi rock e metal di sempre, che adesso vive in Sardegna. I am here with the amazing Mike Terrana. Mike,
My pleasure. My
Thanks
pleasure,
for being
Rob. Thanks for having me, bro.
so first thing I want to ask you, you are living in Sardinia now since when, and how did you end up in Sardinia?
That's a long story, but I'll shorten it up for you. I think about 5 years ago, COVID hit. Was that 2000? I think it was 2000. COVID hit.
2020, 2020.
Yeah. I was on tour in Brazil, actually, and all this COVID stuff was going on. I came back home. I was living in Forte di Marmi in Tuscany. And about a week after I got home, lockdown. Everything was locked down. Had to stay in the house, had to wear a mask, all this craziness. And then there were no more shows. I wasn't working. And I thought, oh, wow, what's going to happen? How long is this going to last? And I had some friends here that invited me to do a show. And I came here for the show, and I was looking around, and I was talking to my friends. And they're like, hey, why don't you move here? It's nice, quiet. It's not so expensive. And so I decided to move here. I took a chance. And yeah, it's a pleasure to live here. I've been here for 5 years. I like the people. I like the weather. The food is good. It's a nice place to live. So it was a good move for me.
And before that, you've been living like in Germany, you've been living in Los Angeles, you've been living all over the world.
I've lived a lot of different places, yeah. I'm born in Buffalo, New York, and then 1984, I joined a band called Hanover Fist in Toronto, Canada. I lived in Toronto for 2 years. The band got dropped. We were on MCA, Metal Cemetery of America. Moved out, got back home, played in a cover band for a couple years, and then I got myself out to Los Angeles in 87. I lived in Los Angeles for 10 years. But during that time in 94, I was playing with Yngwie, so I lived in Miami for 2 years, went back to LA, started touring in Europe.
So you're living in Miami?
Yeah. I still had my house in LA, but I was living in Miami for 2 years working with Malmsteen. That was kind of strange. And then I was touring in Europe, and I thought, you know what? The Tony McAlpine band broke up, and I thought, I think the people in Europe are pretty cool. It's a good place to live. So I relocated to Europe in 1997. I lived in Holland for 1 year. Then I moved to Germany. I lived there for about 12 years. Then I lived in Copenhagen, Denmark for 4 years. Then I came down to Italy to see my ancestors.
Wow, that's a lot of
A lot of bouncing around.
actually amazing.
But if you want to rock and roll, you got to follow the music. You got to move and groove.
So my question is, Terrana, you're from Sicily, so your ancestors are
Well,
from
my father's from Sicily.
Which
From a small city called Agrigento.
Agrigento. Okay.
Actually, the city is called Grote. It's a little town outside of Agrigento, but it's in that area. And my mother's family is from Abruzzo. So I'm 100% Italiano.
Actually, I didn't know even your mother was it that.
Yeah, but everybody thinks I'm German.
Yeah, because you've been playing in German for so long.
Yeah. If I'm on the beach, a lot of guys come up to me, these guys that are selling stuff, Guten Tag. And I'm like, Guten Tag.
Well, you look like a German.
Yeah, yes, I am. Maybe I've got some German blood, some Viking blood. I think some Vikings came down to Sicily and
Probably.
did some stuff with my ancestors. Who knows?
My next question is about you. I mean, I know you since since the 90s.
Since you were a baby.
Since I was a baby, actually. You started as a unbelievable performer. I remember your solos with Malmsteen, with Rage. I remember you were like a performer. And now you are, I would say, an influencer. Can we say that? You basically did the switch. You were able, in your 60s, to change completely your life and your way of being a musician.
Yeah.
And I really admire you for that. Because I remember back then, you didn't like Instagram. You didn't like, in the beginning, you were like, but now you change everything. Can you tell us how was this transition? How was...
Yeah. Well, when you're a musician, you're involved in a business that's constantly evolving. I've lived through, my career spans through vinyl, then there was cassettes, Then there was CDs. Now there's streaming. Now there's nothing. There's no record companies. And so, you know, I did a lot of touring. Now there's not so much touring because the record companies were financing that stuff. So when COVID hit and there was no work, I thought to myself, what am I going to do? Somehow I need to keep playing drums. I want to show people I can still play and reach out and entertain people. I like to entertain people. That's the whole point of playing live, right? It's fun. And so I kind of reinvented myself at the age of 60, which is not so easy to do.
No, that's why I'm so curious.
A lot of guys that are 60, they're at home with the remote control. We got that Bart Simpson thing going on, or Ted Bundy, as an Al Bundy.
Yeah.
I think Ted Bundy is another guy we don't want to talk about. But yeah, so I decided to make videos. I don't really consider myself to be an influencer. I'm a musician. But now that the number is going higher, I'm able to promote brands, different types of instruments, whether they're cymbals or sticks. So that's very powerful to have that number because I'm out there. And basically I'm playing to about, I don't know, 250,000 people a day. You can't do that if you're going to fly. You know how many times you have to fly?
Yeah.
How many drum clinics you have to do? You do it. I see a drum clinic now. Maybe you play to 20 people if you're lucky. Right? It's a drum festival more. But so yeah, I'm playing to a lot of people every day. And actually, the last month I had a couple of videos that went over 5 million.
Wow.
So that's
How are the numbers
that's a lot
of your
of people.
social media?
Sorry?
How are the numbers of your social media? Like Instagram?
Altogether now with all my social media platforms, I'm at over 2.5 million followers.
Wow, that's a lot.
So
Especially because you made it with your phone.
Pretty much. Yeah, you know, I'm from the 60s and 70s. We didn't have internet. You know, I remember being on tour. Nobody knew where I was. I liked that. I liked just disappearing for a couple of months in the bus with the guys in the band, right? Drinking beer, telling jokes, playing shows. And now everything is documented. Everything, you know, I mean, your phone is a tracker, right? It shows wherever you're going. So yeah, kind of an infringement on your privacy. I mean, I don't like people watching me practice. When I practice, it's my time alone with the instrument. It's for me, it's cathartic, therapeutic. It's pleasant for me to just be alone, make mistakes, you know, and the minute the camera's on, you're not in your own world. You're performing again. That's not practice. When you practice, you work on things that you can't do and to perfect them. I like to work on things and then show it, okay? But now everything needs to be documented. And, you know, the fact that you could take a phone, make a video, upload it, and 20 minutes later, you've got 10 or 15,000 views on that video. It was unheard of. I mean, I made several instructional videos that I self-financed, and I would spend anywhere between $10,000 and $15,000 to make the video. I had to rent the studio. I had to have the crew. I had to pay for their food, their hotels, and then there was time pressure.
Because you have to record.
Yeah, you have to record. The cameras are on, and it costs a lot of money to do that. Now you can basically make a record with a laptop. You can record yourself, and people can see you almost immediately, which is kind of cool. But then again, you're also mixed into this swirling mess, this web. That's what they call it, a web. You're in this web of stuff. There's so much information out there. I think, especially for the young people, I think they're just polluted by all this information.
Too much information.
I think so. You've got guys like, you know, I do this swivel, I do this with my fingers, I do that. It's too much. I mean, when I was a kid, I was alone in my practice room, and I didn't know how to do things, but I found my own way to do it. Okay?
Spend time learning it.
Yeah. And this is where you start to develop your own style. This is the problem. Now everyone's watching everybody, and it's like everyone is starting to sound the same. It's not so interesting for me. I remember when I lived in LA, I had a practice room down in Compton in East LA. And Scott Travis used to rehearse on the other side of the building from Judas Priest. But back then he was in, what was the name of that band? Racer X. He was in Racer X. So I used to practice in this little room, not even as big as half the size of this, just a cube, you know? And I'd be practicing and practicing, and then I'd, stop to go get a drink of water, and there would be all these cigarette butts out in front of my door. And I was thinking, guys are standing here and they're listening to me. And then I'm going to the bathroom and I hear the guy that was smoking cigarettes. He's playing the same thing I was. I was like, no, I want to get away from that. I want to develop my own thing. Yeah, I mean, you can take it as a compliment if someone's listening to you and they think what you're doing is worth copying, but still, I was working on something and I want to show it. I don't want everybody to copy it. Yeah, and that's the problem now with social media. Everything is documented. Everybody's talking. Talk is cheap, man. Just do it. Play it. Frank Zappa once said, talking about music is like dancing to architecture.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to play, express yourself. If you're going to play guitar, do it. If you're going to play drums, do it. If it's good, if it's from the heart, it doesn't have to be super technical. But if it's done with conviction and you've got a style and a sound, you're going to grab people. They're going to feel it. The audience is not stupid. They know when you're faking it. Even now.
These days they are faking too much. But on Instagram, it's like everything is so fake.
Yeah.
It's getting like ridiculous.
And also you get these crazy people that are haters that just want to leave a crazy comment. A guy last week wrote to me, yeah, you're just miming to the original track. Do you know how hard that would be to try to play every note that Alex Van Halen played? I mean, I put in my own stuff, and that's also the problem with social media. There's someone who's like, okay, I learned this Dream Theater song, and now I'm as good as Mike Portnoy. How about no? No, you're not, because Mike Portnoy spent years developing his style and then conceptualized his fills, created that with the band. There's a big difference between copying something that someone worked on than just, spitting it out, and playing the exact parts. I was watching an interview with Neil Peart a couple of weeks ago. It was a very nice interview. It was a radio interview from 1979 or something. I was in Rush in the 70s. And Neil Peart said, yes, I was developing parts for this record, and I think he was talking about Red Barchetta or something. He said it took him about 1 week just to solidify his parts for that song, because he never plays the same drum fill in a song. You ever notice that? It's always a variation on a theme. Neil Peart is an excellent example of developing a solo or creating fills and patterns for the song. It's very, very well thought out, and there's only one way to play it. And it's like that with Dream Theater, too. If you cover a Dream Theater song,
that's the only way to play it.
Exactly. They've got it so locked in. They developed the parts, and yeah, that's the way it goes. So, yeah, social media is it's interesting, and it's also a full-time job. So, yeah.
Every day you wake up and you already think about what you have to do. Like, I have to track this. Oh, you post every day.
I wake up and I look at my phone and I look at my number. That's the first thing I do. Did I go up? And actually, I'm going up maybe like 1,000 followers every 2 days. But now I'm at 821,000 followers on Instagram. I'm close to 1 million. When I hit 1 million, what's going to happen? I don't know.
No, you tell me.
Throw me some money. I don't know what's going to happen.
And do you think that now that you have these numbers, like the companies look at you in a different way? Because these days, like, endorsement deals are usually not as good as they used to be. But do you think that you, with that all the numbers you have a power? They understand that?
Yeah. Some of the companies do. There's a lot of companies that are still kind of stuck in the traditional, okay, this guy recorded with this band, he's a star.
Okay.
So we give him X amount of exposure, clinics and stuff like that. But now things are starting to change because, when I was a kid, we had Modern Drummer. I would kill for a copy of Modern Drummer.
I remember those.
And back in the 70s, I'd read Modern Drummer and I'm like, how come Neil Peart's not in the magazine? And then later on, he almost owned the magazine. He was writing a lot of articles and stuff, but nobody knew who he was because they were from Canada and I was from Buffalo. I saw Rush in a bar. So the magazines were very important. They were very powerful. The adverts, the information, the interviews. I used to love reading all the interviews about professional drummers. And that's kind of gone. Everything's gone digital. So if you're a drummer that's exceptionally talented, or maybe you're very entertaining, or maybe you're a very good instructor, and you're giving out this content, the numbers go up, and then you are of value to specific companies. Okay? Of course, you're going to showcase their product. If you're able to speak intelligently about the product, about the sticks, about the electronics, the microphones that you use, it's quite involved. And actually, there's a couple of guys out there that are doing a really good job. I I'm starting to get more into that, but I prefer playing. I'm a player. I'm not really a teacher. For me, when I was a kid, it was very important to go out, play, and make money, pay my rent. You know what I mean?
Yeah, playing.
Yeah, I wanted to pay my bills playing music. Easier said than done, my friends. That's why a lot of people say, "Well, you're not that good." And it's just like, it's not about being good. It's about making a living, Like you pay your rent, you buy your food, all your clothes, whatever you drive. If you pay for that doing this, you're doing good.
Back then, actually, it was easier to find paid gigs than it is today. Today, like,
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing. I mean, okay, we had COVID, a lot of clubs closed. You can't close the world for 2.5, 3 years and expect the bars still to be open.
Right.
I'll tell you a funny story. When I was living in New York, I had a heavy metal band called Zillion. And we used to do a circuit all around Western New York. We used to play Syracuse, Rochester, Albany, Schenectady, New York City, played L'Amour's in New York City, all these clubs would go around. And I remember we were playing in the Penny Arcade in Rochester, New York, which is where Lou Gramm is from, the singer from Foreigner. And we were opening up for no, we were headlining. We were doing our show. We played cover songs and we played some of our own original music. And they raised the drinking age to 21. It used to be 18. Okay? So at midnight, drinking age was 21. 75% of the people in the club left. You know why? Because people that are over 21 have to wake up. They got to go to work. If you're 18, you're still living at home.
Okay.
You can drink. You can wake up with a hangover. No, it's going to be fine. So we lost a lot of the audience. So with the raising of the drinking age, then you have COVID, something like that. And then, of course, you have the cost of just moving a band around, the logistics, moving your drums. If you got a band with 3 guys, in a van, hotels, travel, gas, food, and then a show gets canceled. I had my own band. I had a power trio called Terrana. We went out and did a tour in Europe, Eastern Europe. We did about 15 shows. And a couple of shows got canceled. And that's like, okay, so I guess we go to a hotel. Okay. And who's going to pay for the rooms? Moi.
Who's gonna pay for the food?
I pull out the credit card. Yeah, because the band needs per diem. So I give them that. And we finished that tour. I paid my drum tech. I paid the fuel. I paid the band. Paid everybody.
And you?
I got nothing. Wow. That was my name, Terrana, on the backdrop, okay? I got nothing for 15 shows, a lot of sweat. Wow. It was fun. But this is what you're up against when you go out on the road. It's not like sitting in your house, in your mom's basement, practicing. When you're out on the road, you're open to all kinds of strange, difficult situations, which must be solved immediately. Normally with money. My money.
Did you miss touring?
Sorry?
Do you miss touring with a band?
Yeah, I do. I miss touring. I mean, I actually like going out by myself now. I have this project, where I play classical music and stuff. I enjoy that. That's something I'm developing now for the next run. But yeah, I like being on the tour bus. I like sleeping on the tour bus. I like to flip my schedule around. I'm sure you did this too. You get out on the road, you're up until sunrise, hanging out, telling jokes, and you sleep. I would wake up. I had a time where I would wake up like 1 hour before sound check.
Wow.
Take a shower, step up there, kick the drums. I mean, isn't that a great way to wake up? wake up in a different city every day, check your drums, have some food, all the food's there. You don't have to make breakfast. Everything's done, right? Then you go home. It's like you got to wake up. You got to make breakfast. You got to make coffee. No. Tell you what, man, if you can be a rocker and go on the road, it's fun. It's the best life. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
That's interesting.
So, yeah,
Many people knows you as an influencer. Yeah, because it's interesting because these days it looks like they don't know about the past or they don't. So I like the way that you are working a lot on Instagram and social media, but still you like to play. You actually, I feel like you want to go back and do what.
Yeah, I'm going to get back out there and play. As a matter of fact, I'm in the middle of making some deals and some changes that will put me back out playing more live shows because I like to play live. And it's funny because a lot of people think that I'm some old rich guy that likes to play drums in my house on the weekend.
Wow.
They don't know anything because it's like a lot of young people, their history of music starts with YouTube.
Wow, that's
Okay, when did YouTube come out? I don't know. 90s? Early 90s?
no on YouTube.
Yeah, when you
2000 and something, I guess.
so yeah, that's their their landmark, but their milestone for learning, or for experiencing new artists. But yeah, I've been rolling around for years. I've been on tour for 45 years. I made over 100 records, did lots of tours.
45 years of
I've
professional.
been playing drums for 45 years. I'm 65 years old, mentally 12. 12-year-old mind trapped in a 65-year-old body.
Still keeping.
It's a beautiful thing, huh?
I have a question now about
You had no more questions. I'm probably out there.
you're 65, man. How do you keep in such a great shape? Because I have friends, they are like 25, they look like they are 80.
Well, I'll tell you, I think some of it has to do with genetics. My mom is still alive, and she's 93, and she's riding a bike, doing yoga, and driving a car.
Wow.
Her name's Joyce. Joyce, the people's choice. She's got a lot of power. So I think maybe I got some of that from my mom. But also, when I was a kid, I played a lot of sports. I played American football. I played ice hockey. I was on the swim team. I was even on the bowling team. Nerd alert! I was on the bowling team. I had my own bowling ball. But anyway, no one should know that. Now you guys know. But I remember when I was about 14 years old in my high school, they took us to the weight room. There was a room upstairs in the gym, and they're like, boys, these are the weights. Here's what you got to do. And I started training. I was like, oh, this is cool. I like this. And because I loved ice hockey, I actually wanted to be a professional ice hockey player. Yeah, I used to play ice hockey all winter long. In Buffalo, it's very cold. I used to ice skate down my street to the pond and play until those got dark and we'd lose the puck, and then I'd have to go home, be frostbitten. I didn't care. But I think that kind of interaction with sports, I never stopped. From the age of 14,
You never stop.
I never stopped lifting weights. I was never a heavy drinker. I never smoked cigarettes. I'm a vegetarian.
Okay, no,
Yeah, I've been a vegetarian for about 8 years. That's because I got food poisoning many times when I was out on the road with Tarja Turunen. And if the lead singer gets food poisoning, the show's canceled. If the drummer gets food poisoning, you're going to play. There's a bucket and you do it. So when you have food poisoning, it's like you can imagine when you're sick and you're going to, vomit. Go and run, because that's what drumming is. You're running, you're exercising, and you feel nauseous, and you play. I've done many shows like that.
So you decided to quit meat and did it.
Yeah, I stopped eating meat just because I got sick from this meat, because sometimes you're on the road and they feed you some crazy stuff, and might not agree with you. And then also from the perspective of the life force in the animals. I mean, I think it's a little bit disrespectful to the animals. I remember one time I was on tour, not on tour, I was on vacation in Costa Rica. It's a beautiful place. And I had to walk through the jungle to get to this beach. It was like a 10-minute walk. And every day I'd walk past this house where there was all this Latin music blasting up, and the guy had cows. And the cows were walking around, And every day I'd come to the fence and the cows would come. And they were very friendly. They were very innocent and friendly. And I used to pet the cows. I say, hey, you guys like me, because they could feel that I wasn't going to eat them. But I mean, you know, the way they kill them and the way they process the food, I think here in Sardinia, it's different.
Yeah,
The way that the food is.
quality is way better.
Yeah, but when you live in America, God only knows what they do to that stuff. Actually, when I was doing the Yngwie Malmsteen record, the producer of that record was a man by the name of Jeff Glicksman, and he did all the Kansas records. You know the band Kansas? Jeff Glicksman is an integral part of Kansas, yeah. And one time we were talking, he was a vegetarian, and he told me, Mike, he had a southern accent. He was from, I think he was from Atlanta. He said, Mike, you got to read this book. It's called Diet for a New America. And it was about the meat packing plants and how they kill the animals and process the food in the United States. And I read that book, and that kind of changed my mind. But I like the animals. I don't think there's a reason to do that.
Do you take any supplements? Because you have also...
No, you can get protein from nuts, from beans, from broccoli, I don't eat fish. I don't eat any meat.
So what do you do today to keep in shape? You run, you lift weights?
Yeah, I'm skipping rope. I have a little gym in my house. I have a pull-up bar. I do calisthenics, push-ups,
Every day?
pull-ups. Huh?
Every day?
Yeah, every day I work out. And I don't work out more than 40 minutes. Here's something else I can impart some interesting information. Everyone's like, yeah, do lift some weights. Take a break. Lift some weights. I do 3 minutes in between every set. And you basically allow your muscles to rest so that you can use a good amount of weight with the proper form. I mean, if you're doing curls and you're like this, oh, you're working out your back. You need to stay still and work out and concentrate on the muscle. Same thing with pull-ups. All the way down, all the way up to the chest, you know. Strict form, good reps. Doesn't matter how many reps you do as long as they're consistent reps. But I have some people on social media that are like, hey, Grandpa, not bad. Hey, Pappy. Hey, man, give me 5 push-ups.
The old school guys are tougher than the new ones. There's not... It's true. They are tough. I mean, they just do these kind of things.
I have to tell you, things were different in the 70s, especially in Buffalo, New York. I grew up in a cold, gray, industrial city, okay?
Buffalo, but
Yeah, the people were big, they were hairy, and they were mean. And that's just the girls. Anyway.
okay.
It's funny. I'm funnier than Thomas Lane, huh? You tell any jokes? You listening to me, Thomas?
They're both funny, but you're funnier. God.
He's funny. You know, when me and Thomas Lang played together in Russia, in Moscow, at the Meinl Day, we had a lot of fun.
I know there's a drum solo.
We had a lot of fun. He's very clever and witty.
My next question is like advice for drummers starting today.
Mm-hmm.
They want to get out on social media. They want to somehow...
Don't do it. Get a job. No. No. God, you know, well, I'll tell you something. I see a lot of young people playing, and I see a lot of good people. You know, when I grew up, there was no videotapes. There was no instructional videos. I remember I saw Van Halen in 1977. I saw Alex Van Halen. I only saw the front of the drum set. I didn't see any multi-camera pedals. You didn't see that. It didn't exist. You saw the band from the front. There was lights and smoke. So
We have to think about it.
yeah, you were like, what's going on? I remember I saw Alex Van Halen's solo it was all quads. I didn't know what he was doing. I didn't understand that it was like that. I had no idea. I could only see from the front. So yeah, you know, it's difficult. Now there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of kids that are studying. Maybe their parents are supporting that. My parents did not want me to be a drummer. They still don't know what I do for a living. They don't get it. Like, really, you get paid for that? Yeah, sometimes. Anyway,
What's your advice for young drummers today starting to play? In what he wants to like have an audience, he wants to join a band. Today things are very different.
yes,
Understand.
it's much different than when I was a kid. I mean, now you have a lot of tools, especially like this metronome thing. There was no metronome there was a metronome when I was a kid. It was you can't play drums to that. You don't hear it, you know? You can't take the the metronome from grandma's piano and put it down and start rocking. So I always played to records, you know, and of course, maybe some of those studio drummers played to a click. I don't know. The Zeppelin records are not recorded to a click track. So, you know, when I got into the studio I made my first real recording with a producer in a studio in Los Angeles. That was like 1987. They're like, you got to play to a click track. And I was like, oh, remember the first time you played to a click track? Horrible. Oh, it was horrible. I don't want to I don't want to hear that. But after you practice for a while, it disappears, and then it's just a reminder of where the tempo is. But there's an art to playing to the click track. So young people have that tool. Now you can play to a click track. Now you have Moises. You can upload a track, delete the drums, and you can play. I always had to play along and listen to the other drummer. You couldn't really do anything. It was not fun. So you have that tool. You have video cameras. You can watch yourself playing. You have instructional videos. So you have YouTube. Guys are showing you all this technique. So the amount of information coming in is incredible. And that enables you to practice and get better. Okay. And that means there's more competition. Then, of course, you're faced with the fact of, okay, you're a young guy, you're a good drummer, you want to play in a band. All right, you join a band. Then what? How do you get out on the road? Will the club pay you? Do you have a record deal? Even if you have a record deal, normally they don't give you any money. These record companies today, they do something called a 360 deal, where they take a percentage of the band's merchandise. That's highway robbery. You're out on the road with your t-shirts, and they want a percentage of your t-shirts? No, that's wrong. So that's very difficult. I mean, when I was a kid, we'd get a record deal, and the record company would pay for the tour bus. We would lose money. I remember I was in a band called Bo Nasty. I think we lost like $25,000, $30,000 for every tour we did. But they were developing that. In the return would be the record sales. That's how it used to work. But now there's no record sales. So you're faced with that dilemma. Okay, you're faced with the competition. You're faced with the lack of recording company support. The fact that clubs don't really pay bands that are playing original music. That's why you see all these tribute bands. And then, of course, you have the social media thing where you start playing and you're like, okay, I'm gonna do these videos, and then a company is gonna give me some free equipment. But that's not really how it works. You know, there's many variables that enter into getting an endorsement. That's a business relationship. So all these things I'm telling you, a lot of people are like, yeah, you're just a drummer and you joke around. There's a lot of business that nobody sees. Okay. And you have to be clever. You have to be likable. You have to develop your own style. You have to either be exceptionally good, like a prodigy level, or you have to be in a band that's happening, and then you have some leverage to get some equipment, which will help you in the future. Because when you're on the road, drummers especially, you buy some sticks, what do? You smash them, you crack them. Okay, you could have a 12-euro pair of sticks that could last 1 minute. You hit your cymbal, they're like gold, right? You can pay $300, 300 euros for a cymbal. Take it home, you beat it, it's cracked. This cuts into your food budget, you know? So it helps to have those kind of endorsements in place. But in order to have those kind of deals, you have to give something back to the company, okay? Then, of course, there's the thing with social media and getting exposure and, you know, getting followers. I mentioned to you that I go to China every summer. I do like 1 month in China, and I play at these 9 Beats drum schools. The last time I was there last summer, they asked me to judge a drumming competition. There were kids from 8 to 16. I sat in a room and I watched 30 of these kids play. All of them were actually, I would have to say 75% of them were better than me. I'm not kidding you, bro. They're playing like Dave Weckl, you know, from the Master Plan video. They're playing those tracks and beyond. It was astonishing with performance, with tricks. I mean, when I was 8 years old, I was shy to play the drums in front of people. They put these kids out in front of a huge audience. There's cameras everywhere. This is the new generation, and they handle it. So I sat there in a room watching these kids, and I had trouble to pick the top 5 drummers. It took me 3 days in my hotel room on my day off to pick the top 5 drummers. They were all incredible. And that kind of scared me, actually, because, I'm a rock drummer. I'm self-taught. And when I see these kids that are growing up with this kind of educational material, they're far advanced, way more advanced than me when I was that age.
That's it's impressive.
Yeah, in China, also like in Asia, the education is very, very strict. The parents really push the kids. And for them, playing an instrument, whether it's piano or drums, it's an addition to their education, okay? It's to broaden their horizons. They're not trying to be rock stars. I mean, some of these kids could play professionally, but they don't want to. They're just like, yeah, my parents want me to play an instrument, so I chose drums.
Wow.
I gave lessons to a girl, very cute girl. She was like 10 years old. And I said, okay, what do you want to learn? Odd groupings. Okay, so we start playing fives. She played everything perfectly. I showed her, and really good technique. After the lesson was finished, I was tired. I was exhausted 1 hour with this kid because I really had to play. I had to teach, And then we took a picture together, and then I was talking to some other people there in the lobby of the school, and I saw her watching something on her laptop. And I was like, oh, that's nice. She's done with her lesson. It's Sunday. She's watching cartoons. No.
To watching drum videos.
No. She was watching a math tutorial lesson. The kids go to school all summer long in China. She was studying and she was watching something from school after all that odd grouping stuff. So this is another level. So if you're a young guy and you want to compete, that's what's floating around out there. There's a lot of good young kids. Yeah. And
yeah. How can you beat those guys?
Here's the thing though. You could be technically superior to anyone. But if you're not in the right band, you won't make a living. I mean, who's the guy that plays drums for Coldplay? You don't know, but I bet you that guy's got a couple $1 million in the bank. Doesn't twirl a stick, doesn't do a drum solo. Plays the songs.
Yeah, that's
boom. Really, if you can do this, you're working. If you have a good feel, that's how I grew up. I'm self-taught. We just lost Ace Frehley from Kiss. I was a big Kiss fan. I watched a lot of interviews about Ace Frehley because I'm sad about this, and I miss him. And I thought he was a wonderful person. I loved his personality. He's a real New Yorker. He grew up in the Bronx, okay? It's a tough neighborhood of New York. And they were asking him about guitar. And you know what he said? He goes, I don't know what I'm doing. I just do it. And you can hear that when he plays. There's something interesting about not being so educated, especially with rock and roll.
Yeah, they are. I can understand.
There's rules, but sometimes rules are meant to be broken. I think Andy Warhol once said, art is anything that you can get away with. When you play piano, there's a lot of rules. The keyboard is always the same, but you can sit down behind a bunch of different drum sets. They're all different. You can put toms over here, cymbals over here. Every guy has his ergonomic setup. There's no rules, which is quite interesting. So if you're a young guy, sit down alone, develop your own style, break some rules, and the most important thing, have fun. Because when you're not having fun, then you're not doing it right. There's something wrong. So gotta have fun.
Last question. Are you still having fun?
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. I play every day.
Wow.
I play 6 hours every day. It's a passion. Drumming is not something, wake up, okay, now I must practice. Ching, ching, punch in. Remember the time clock? I don't think they have that anymore. I don't know. It's a passion. I would play for free even if I wasn't a professional musician. I would play because I have to do it. I saw an interview with a very old guy who was like 90-something years old, and he was practicing the piano. And someone said, you're 90. Why do you practice? And he goes, I still think I can get a little bit better.
Wow.
And it's true. The beautiful thing is about any musical instrument or sport, any discipline, it's you and the discipline, okay? And you are gauging your own progress. it's a never-ending journey. Music is a never-ending journey, or martial arts. It's a never-ending journey. You can practice, you can get better, you can develop, you can hone things in. I notice that now that I'm older, I practice harder now than I did 30 years ago, because I know how to practice and I'm very critical. You have to be critical of yourself, okay? You have to produce yourself. So a lot of guys can't do that, but you have to take yourself outside and look at what you're doing and go, is that really good? I don't think so. Keep going. Sometimes it takes a couple days. You have to have a lot of patience. But I think if a lot of people, especially young people, played an instrument or played a sport, you wouldn't have all this crazy stuff going on with crime. You see a lot of kids getting into some stupid stuff with a gun or a knife. I mean, I never had time to even think about that.
Because we were playing.
I was thinking about, how can I get faster? Or how can I do this? Or I want to do this, you know? I mean, that's the beauty of practicing and being involved with an instrument. And just talking about this stick trick stuff. A lot of people want to, oh, this guy, you're a show off. You're always doing that. Hey, I'm making a video. When I'm recording a record, I'm not twirling my sticks. Sometimes I have a chart and I'm concentrating on the groove and the music. But when you make a video for social media, you've got 3 seconds to grab the attention of the people. 3 seconds. Sometimes I see the guy sitting there and the song's going, and the guy's like, scroll. You got to start immediately. And in 3 seconds, grab them. So yeah, it's performance. It's entertainment. Social media is...
That's why you have a name. For the records, for the solos, and for the stick tricks. Everybody remembers you.
And for my wonderful personality.
That's the most important part. So
You gotta have a good sense of humor if you want to rock and roll.
65 years kicking ass. I'm honored. I thank you so much for your
My
time.
pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks for getting me out of the house.
Grazie per il supporto. Continua il progetto BitHub. Oggi il nostro ospite è stato Mike Terrana. Alla prossima.